All right. You are live, he says. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to SerenityOS office hours. I had a little trouble getting the camera working there, but it seems like everything is good. And as usual, I'm going to wait for somebody to tell me that I'm actually visible and audible. But so far, it worked every time. There we go. There's a sign of life and a golden yak nonetheless. Hey, Gekke, how's it going? All right, so it is working. Great. So Friday, SerenityOS office hours. We're going to do what we always do, which is talk about SerenityOS. So if anybody has questions, technical, non-technical, related to SerenityOS, this is a great time to ask because we can look into anything. And I've been working so much on the Acid 3 test this week. I basically didn't do anything else the whole week. So I didn't make any videos or go outside, just focusing on the test. But it's getting to a really good place now. Like there's not that far left to go. If somebody hasn't seen it, let me show you how we're currently doing. Let's see. 98. Oh, I think sometimes you have to reload and get a little bit better score. There we go, 99. So as you can see, we're doing pretty well on this test, although there are a couple of remaining issues. There's of course the last point, but there's also stuff like the start of these sentences here or start of these lines are not perfectly aligned. You can see there's an indentation before the B, and there's like the little red stuff here. We have some weird offset between the shadow and the white here. All of these little things that need to get fixed, but we've come a really long way in the last month. So it is awesome. And actually, you can see here that we also have an issue that one of the tests, at least on this run, was too slow. There is an expectation that you run every test in a certain amount of time. So that's something we're going to have to fix before it would be considered a complete pass. I know it's tempting to see, like, once it gets to 100 out of 100, we will just celebrate, but I really want to bring it all the way to like a fully correct pass. But it's not far away, as you can see. It's just and we have a bunch of people who've been helping out, so I'm very grateful for that. Anyway, people are starting to come into the room. Very nice. Let's see. Hey Vanta, hey Segfault, hey Jordy, hey DJ Wisdom. German WTB says, if you were to switch Serenity from C++ over to some Serenity-specific C++ dialect, what features / syntax would you like to explore / try? If you mean, like, hypothetically, if we would sort of extend C++ for our own pleasure, I guess the first thing I would add would be the question mark operator that Rust has. I think it's really, really nice. I enjoy our try macros. I think our try macro is acceptable, you know? It's like the best we can do with C++ the way that it is, but I certainly wouldn't mind if we could do it with a simple question mark instead. That would be pretty sweet. So I think that's something I would experiment with, but I try not to worry too much about these things because I don't really want to make myself sad with things I can't have in the language. But maybe there will come a time when we'll just do something about it. But right now, there's all this other stuff that I want to do. Let's see. Hey Kaio. Hey Milan. Yeah, indeed, it's awesome that we are already at 99 out of 100, especially if you if you look at where we were not long ago, I've actually been tweeting screenshots regularly for a while now as we've been going through these improvements. So I have a bit of a history here. You can travel backwards one by one. Let's see, 50%. Yeah, I remember that. It was 50% on February 21st. So a little over a month ago, this is where we were, right? So we've come a long way since then. And I think it's really awesome to see just how fast you can move on these things if you just get a bunch of people who really want to do it and motivated by the fun of doing it, and then just let it rip. It's been great to see. Let's see. Hey, Tim. Oh yeah, Tim says, good thing that no reloads is not mandated by ACID 3. That is really good, yeah. Because then we can also reload until we get a smooth enough animation. Smooth enough animation to qualify. But yeah, sometimes like some points fall out. So we do have some stability issues definitely on the test. I don't know why the second thing doesn't work now every time. So we probably want to fix those issues as well, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, this time none of the tests were too slow. They just failed instead. Anyway, Jonas Lindbard with a super chat saying, I know nothing about C++ or operating system development. However, I know I enjoy your channel a lot. From Jonas. Well, thank you, Jonas. That's awesome. I really appreciate the super chat. And I also really appreciate that you can enjoy the channel despite not feeling necessarily like you know about C++ or operating system development. I think something that I feel quite strongly about is that all of this is really just programming. And the fact that we're using C++ a lot, or the fact that we're building an operating system, those can be kind of distracting, because when it comes down to it, what we're doing is we're just telling the computer what to do. And we're using some tools for that, but we could do it with other tools as well, right? So I'm really glad that you are enjoying the channel despite not necessarily feeling like you master the technologies. Let's see. Pierre says, hey, Andreas, what happened to ACID 2? Is it still relevant? Certainly, yeah. ACID 2 is relevant for us, and I would say it's relevant for all browsers because you're expected to pass it. As you can see, we're not fully passing it. We have a couple of issues here. I think this red pattern behind the eyes is because of a background painting issue, that like we're painting a background in 1 pixel off from where it should be. So I think what's going on is that they have two backgrounds, which are like every other pixel is filled in and every other pixel is transparent, and then they stack two of those on top of each other, and they're supposed to completely cover the background in yellow, but instead only one of them is painted in the right place. So you end up seeing every other pixel, if that makes sense. If I zoom in here, you'll see what I mean, actually. Let me just get the magnifier. Yeah, actually, let's super magnify. Yeah, so you have this checkerboard pattern, right? So every other pixel is filled in, and there's supposed to be two of these on top of each other so that you get full coverage, all yellow, but only one of them is in the right place somehow. And then we have a margin collapsing issue here, I think. And down here is CSS overflow and CSS table support, I think. Some stuff is missing, and it's going to take a bunch of work to get that going, but we'll get there. It's stuff that we have to do anyway for web platform compatibility. And honestly, I think tables are probably our greatest weakness in the web engine right now. Our table support is really, really limited, really bare bones. So once we start working on tables, I think this will come in pretty quickly. Let's see. Kook says, do you like Swedish fish candy? I do, actually. But I like the candy that Swedish fish is based on. So Swedish fish. Yeah, so in America, you can get these candies, and they're pretty good. But in Sweden, you can get these in multicolors. So they don't just come in red, but they come in like all kinds of different colors. And I really like these. So pretty good. Unlucky AF says, what do you work on every day to make money? I work on SerenityOS. This is my full-time job, so I'm supported by donations and super chats like these, and people joining the Yak herd like this. So Joseph, welcome to the Yak herd, and thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. I still giggle internally every time I see this golden yak. It's too funny. But thank you very much for joining the herd. Yeah, Unlucky, that's what I do. I work on Serenity, and it's supported by a whole bunch of people, and that's really cool. I hope to be able to do that for a long time, but you never know with things like this. Like support could increase or decrease. I can't really tell. I just have to be grateful for every other day that I get to spend working on this. So I try to have that perspective that, like, I'm just really grateful that I can do this today, and then tomorrow we'll find out what happens then. Physics123 says, Serenity is designed a lot around existing technologies. POSIX, monolithic kernel, most of the UI and UX. Are there areas where you think the SerenityOS community really innovated and pushed boundaries? I don't necessarily think so, because that's not really what the project is about. We're not trying to push the boundaries of the UI or OS paradigms. Instead, this is more about taking all of these things that are known to work well and then building them all together in one place, rather than trying to build individual components all spread out and then assembling them into something. We do this thing where we have a single space where we construct everything and then put it together here, more of a monolithic development style. So I guess that's the area where I would say that we are innovating, that we are making sort of it's a new way of building a complete desktop operating system and browser that hasn't really been tried in an open source world before, as far as I know. At least most projects tend to limit their scope, but not us. We are very ambitious. Let's see. DJ Wisdom says, browser is awesome. SerenityOS is awesome. Therefore, everyone working on it are all awesome. I completely agree with that. I think everyone working on this project is absolutely awesome. I love the people who hack on the system or participate in development in some way. It is an absolute blast to get to do this with all of you. Jorge says, Andreas, just passing by to say how much I love the videos you create. They are like ASMR for me to watch any browser hacking or OS hacking. I'd love to see more. Yes, we're definitely going to make more. Don't worry. And then we got some super chats from Milan saying adopt a Yak Fund plus. And Fredrik Lindner, who says Waffeldagen donation. Is it Waffeldagen today? Dang it, I totally missed that. Waffeldagen. Holy moly, that's today. Okay, I guess I have to do something about that. I'm going to have to get a waffle. But thank you for the Adopt a Yak Fund donation and for the Waffeldagen donation. Very much appreciate that. And Jeja as well with the Adopt a Waffle Fund. Okay, now I have to actually get a waffle. I have to do something about it. Speaking of Adopt a Yak Fund, by the way, I'm happy to report that I have ordered the Yak adoption package. Thanks to the donation I got last week from peers. I am now just waiting to eventually receive this fantastic Yak adoption package. I will report back when I have something to show you. But I am looking forward to this plush Yak toy, especially. I think that's going to be kick-ass. Anyway, Ecoptic said, wait, let me just see that I'm not missing anybody. Okay, I feel like I am probably missing something, but I'm just going to try to go forward. Ecoptic said, hi Andreas, did you play Elden Ring yet? And what's your opinion even if you didn't play 100,000 hours? I played Elden Ring, yes. I have played, I think, 8 hours of the game now. And so far, I'm enjoying it. It's very enjoyable. At first, I found it a little bit hard to figure out what to do, because there were just so many options in every direction. So I was a bit lost, like just deciding what to do, basically. I found difficult in the beginning. Compared to like the other Souls games that I was used to playing, like Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, where it's still open to an extent, but you're kind of limited in your options where you can go. In Elden Ring, there's just so many places you can go, so that was distracting. But after I just basically just picked something to work towards, then it's been a lot of fun. And the last thing I did was I beat Godric, the Grafted, I think his name was. So I got the there was a thing after you beat Godric, then you have to go to the tower and get a rune. So I did that, and then I haven't played after that. But I should mention that I was gifted the copy of Elden Ring from a viewer of the channel, which I am very, very grateful for. So thank you, Morgan, for hooking that up. I really appreciate it. And I'm definitely going to continue playing, probably after the stream, actually. Svonimir says, J in Josip reads as Y in yes. Like Josip. Josip, yes, Josip. Okay. Right, Josip, it is. Lofen says, I imagine you get this question a lot, but how do you start such an enormous project? Did you intend for it / expect it to get this large? I think there are many different answers to this question, but the way I started this project was incrementally, and it wasn't large when it started. Believe it or not, it was just me sitting around in my sweatpants doing some programming, and I mean, I'm still in my sweatpants, but but now there's more of us doing the programming. I think everything big starts small. And the trick that I employed that anybody can do is just to not stop, basically. Don't stop, just keep going. And you'll see that everything can become large and awesome if you just don't give up on it. I think that's probably the most common thing that happens to anything that people try to do, is that they just lose interest or lose momentum and they stop. But my great superpower here is that I just didn't stop, and I kept going for long enough that that other people found it and became interested in joining and hacking on it also. And now it has gotten this life of its own, right? Where even if I don't even go to the computer for the whole day, stuff still happens, and that's amazing. Of course, I still go to the computer almost every day, but it's really nice to see that that there are people who work on stuff that I'm not even aware of, and there's all this awesome things, awesome stuff happening. And I only learn about it when they show up with pull requests or demos and stuff. But I didn't really intend for it to become large or expect it to become large. When I started, I just wanted to build something for myself. I wanted to build an operating system to keep myself busy and eventually have something that I could use. I like the idea of building my own complete environment of software. So I made the decision early on that I'm okay with this taking 10, 15 years to get good. That's fine. I don't mind. I'll put in that time, and I think that helped me a lot with the not stopping. If I had less realistic expectations of how soon it would be ready, I think I probably might have punked out earlier. But having that decision from early days that like I'm fine with it taking a very long time, that has helped me a lot. Hugo says, do you have any tips for managing fears related to project management, not necessarily not meeting deadlines, but also not making something as good as it should be or failing to achieve a goal? Any tips for managing fears? I guess time is finite, right? And we can only do so much when we have a limited amount of time set aside for something. So in the end, it becomes about having realistic expectations and not putting yourself in a position where you overpromise to other people or overpromise to yourself, but try to learn every time that you give out an estimate for anything in life, and then you find out like how long it actually took, then that is a very important learning opportunity, right? You want to learn as much as possible whenever you get the data back on how long something takes or how good something gets with a certain amount of investment, of time, of effort, and so on. You want to really absorb that information, right? And integrate it into your own mental model of how to make, I guess, prognoses in the future. And fear, I think fear gets a lot smaller, or like you have a lot less fear if you're more confident. And you're more confident as you get more experience. You will become more confident if you use your experience as a way to learn about yourself so that you can be more accurate in the future. It's not so much about not being afraid or I guess being more confident that you can like hurry up if needed, but learning how to give accurate time plans early on instead of learning the tricks to catch up if you fall behind. I don't know if that makes sense. This is something I was thinking about a lot personally, because I used to struggle a lot with estimating how long something would take, but after I've been making videos on my YouTube channel, I got really, really good at estimating what kind of things I can do within a 1 to 2 hour time range if I just focus. And I learned that by just doing hundreds and hundreds of things like that and recording the process. And now that I've done that so many times, I feel really confident that I can commit myself to doing something, and I wouldn't worry about these things at all if they were in the context of project management or like giving a deadline to something. So I guess my advice is to try to accumulate experience and then try to learn from your experience. Try to figure out what you can, what it can teach you, I guess. I hope that makes sense. El Cocos says, any new videos coming up? Do they have a schedule? My videos do not have a schedule. I just make videos when I find something that I really want to share in a video format. But this week I've been, as I mentioned earlier, I've just been working on the ACID 3 test, trying to improve the score and really pushing towards, I really want to get the test fully completed, fully passing. Because we are so close that I can just taste it. So it's very motivating to have something like that, but obviously this is gonna run out. I mean, we're gonna hit full passing test and then I have to do something else, but right now this is just what I'm focusing on. So I've not been making videos or anything as I do that. Vanta says, hi Andreas, have you thought about making ISOs for Serenity? Yes, this is a frequently asked question, but no, we don't have ISOs. It's not really the type of operating system that provides ISOs because it's not really made for users. It's made for its own developers. And developers can easily follow the build instructions and build their own copy of the system if they want. Unlucky AF says, do a cooking show for waffles. Well, I don't know about that, but I do have a waffle iron. Although I realized the other day that I've had a waffle iron for years, but I never once made waffles in it. I just used it to make like grilled cheese sandwiches. Dev says, hi Andreas, hope all is well. All is well. Thank you for asking. I hope all is well with you too. Actually, I guess things are pretty good today. I am very tired because I've been out walking just before starting the stream. I was out walking for 3 hours almost, which was more than I normally walk. So my feet hurt, but it's okay. Let's see. Toma says, hi Andreas, I don't have any C or C++ experience. Is there anything that a Python developer could do to help the project? There are all kinds of things you can do to help the project. The easiest thing to do is to just learn a little bit of C++ and work on anything that you like. It's not terribly difficult. Like if you are proficient in programming in another language like Python, you can pick up C++ relatively fast. And we have a lot of our developers that had never touched C++ before they became interested in working on SerenityOS. Linus is a great example, but we also have people like Tobias and a bunch of others that I don't remember who specifically right now, but but we have a whole bunch of people that just learn C++ in order to work on Serenity. So I wouldn't limit myself by thinking of myself as like, oh, I'm a Python developer, or a C++ developer, or PHP developer, or anything like that. Instead, you're just a programmer, right? And a programmer can learn any language, and you can adapt yourself to any environment. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, but if you don't mind expending those, then I think you will find a million little interesting things that you could do in Serenity. Al3A Grab, Alia Grab says, have you ever played League of Legends? I have not played League of Legends ever, I think. I didn't play any of the MOBA games ever. They remind me, I don't know, I never enjoyed playing these multi-unit games like Warcraft and Starcraft and stuff like that. So when I see these MOBAs, that doesn't really seem so interesting to me either. I prefer games where I'm controlling a single unit of some type. Jorshay says, how would someone implement a new applet, like a weather applet? Any applet you think would help the Serenity OS? So I don't know. I don't, in terms of like applets I think would help the system, I don't know. I have all the applets I need, but I'm sure that other people could think of other applets that would be useful. If you want to build a new applet, the best way to do that is to just look at one of the existing applets and replicate what it does. So if you look at a really simple one, like the clock applet, which I thought was called the clock applet, but that's not even a thing anymore, I remember now. We have applets. Let's see what we have. We have the clipboard history applet. We have the little audio applet. Let's look at the network applet. That's a pretty simple one. So basically, it's a little main function that has a little bit of setup, and then it creates a window here, and the window type is window type applet. So if you just make a window with this type and then show it, it will show up in the applet area in the taskbar. So that's really all there is to it. And then from then on, it's just using regular libGUI widgets and all of the usual way that you would interact with any, that you would develop any GUI application on Serenity. So really the main trick is to just make a window of this type and yeah, look at any of the existing applets for inspiration. You can like copy paste one of them and start working from that. That's what I would do probably. Let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's see. S. Seller says, hello there, Andreas. What part of your SerenityOS work are you focusing on right now? I'm focusing on the browser, and specifically on the ACID 3 test, which I have been showing a few times on the stream already, but I'll do it again because it's so much fun. I'm just trying to make this test pass all the way. Let's see. Error XP7 says, what are your favorite color palettes? My favorite color palette is the default SerenityOS color palette. Basically, right now. I think these colors are real pretty, but I don't really have a strong feeling about specific like branded color palettes like Grovebox, Nordic Solarized, and whatnot. I just like these classic gray default colors. Milan says, seems like waffle in Sweden is like Krapfen in Austria, very popular. Okay, I gotta look that up. Krapfen. That's not really like waffles, but they do look awesome. Leonardo says, I watched your videos regarding the link hover performance issue. What is the current link performance status? So links are pretty good. Let me go to GitHub. Let's take a look. Now, of course, there are many websites where link hover leads to something unpleasant happening, and we have to spend a lot of time to re-render. So for example, websites where they do, maybe they do something like where you hover something and then it moves around a little bit, that forces us to relay out the page, which can then be very slow. But in simple cases like this, where we just have like just a color and underline changing when you're hovering something, then now it's basically instantaneous as long as we can paint it. We're only limited by our ability to repaint the page, so that's really sweet. And if you look at something like the HTML specification, which is like a very text-heavy page, and it still updates really fast. Still, there's a lot more we can do here. We are, for example, when I'm doing this, we repaint the whole page, like not just the two links that changed, you know, but actually we repaint the entire page. Everything that you don't see here is being painted and of course immediately clipped out, but still like we still go through all of these text above and below the scroll viewport. So a lot of stuff we can improve in that area to just reduce the amount of work done. I would like it very much if moving up and down like this would not generate any green down here on the CPU graph, but it is not necessarily gonna be easy, but it would be cool. Xenonbox says the notification came 28 minutes late. Thanks, YouTube. Yeah, the YouTube notifications are not always reliable, but we do have the content announce channel on Discord where I always post if there's something, and I don't know if you want to subscribe to that channel or something like that, maybe that's possible. I'm not really sure. But you can always find stuff in that channel. And of course, the office hours is on a schedule. Like, it's always 4 o'clock Swedish time. So if you're here at 4 o'clock Swedish time, then I will be here too, hopefully. Alex K says, is there a place in the SerenityOS project for applications that are not traditionally part of an operating system, but unlike ports, are specifically built in the Serenity ecosystem? For example, software for video editing, 3D animation, vector graphics, technical drawing, scientific technical computing, plotting, etc. So there hasn't really been a situation where we had something that we wanted to add but didn't want to make it part of the greater system. If something like that comes up, I guess we'll have to deal with it then. There isn't like we don't have a procedure or a place for these things right now. Right now, we just build them into the main repo. And I think I kind of like continuing to do that. But if one of those components were to become like way too large and most people don't care about it, then, we wouldn't build it by default probably, but you can opt into building it, things like that. But I like the idea of having everything, even the more like application like software. It would still be cool to have them in the same project. DJ Wisdom says, hi Andreas, here's what I think for SerenityOS slogan. SerenityOS, familiar feel, built different. Omega Killer says, finally got the notification to watch you during you are live. Yes, that is correct. I am live. Jörg with a super chat saying a coin for a nice weekend. Thank you very much, Jörg, for the coin. I am going to do my best to have a nice weekend and eat some waffles, apparently. But thank you, I really appreciate the super chat. Let's see. Sky Rising says, totally agree. I did not write any C++ before starting on Serenity 2 weeks ago, and I'd say it's going well anyway. Yeah, I mean, I've seen your changes. It's clearly going well, and if you didn't do any C++ before Serenity, then you are a great example. Sky Rising right here is a great example of how easy it is to pick up C++ if you are already good at programming. Because Sky Rising makes awesome patches. Xenonbox said, could we have an optional role on Discord to get pinged for videos and streams? Oh, I guess that could be a thing. I'm not sure. Maybe we could build that feature into our bot somehow. I feel like that might be easier if we could make a bot command or something where you can subscribe to content notifications, or I don't know. Well, that's a good question. We'll have to look into that and see what we can come up with. Omega Killer asks if I have tried Diablo 2 Resurrected. I have not. Aaron Clark says, hello friend. I was wondering about experimenting with VSTs and something like Jack or ALSA. Can they be used or ported to Serenity? We cannot use Jack or ALSA at the moment, and we don't have any VST support either, but I don't really know enough about the architecture of VSTs to know exactly what would be required, but I'm sure that you could make it work somehow if you just write enough code to glue everything together. I don't know exactly what components would be needed. But that is an interesting question. It would be fun to. I have some VSTs that I would like to run on Serenity. That would be super fun. Like I have like Massive from back in the day, and some others. Tomo says, a known company which does offensive security research has offered me an internship. I never worked for a company. I'm not even 18. In your experience, is there a good chance to turn this into a job? Yes, I believe so. I got my first jobs by doing internships, and I was barely 18 at the time, and still I managed to squeeze those things into jobs somehow. Of course, it was a while ago now, but companies usually, like when a company discovers that somebody is useful to them, then they're not gonna care super much about how old you are or where you're from or things like that. If you can do something awesome for them, they're going to be interested. But it is important that I would suggest getting advice from somebody who's like familiar with like the employment contracts and things like that in wherever you're from, because there is a chance that like they might try and take advantage of a young person who might not know so much about how employment deals should normally work. That's definitely something that happened to me when I was young, that I got into working for some people that were underpaying me, and they were doing some like shady accounting things that were like saving them money, but creating problems for me. I'm not going to say too much about that, but it was a long time ago, and it's always good to get advice from somebody who knows how these things are supposed to work in the area where you are. Alex Gravener says, what was the hardest x86-ism to figure out when you first did early boot? Early boot? I don't know, man. I've been doing like early boot since I was early teens, so I don't remember what I struggled with back then. I don't know if it's x86-isms, but more like PC-isms. Like when I was first writing boot code, I was loading off of a floppy long time ago, and I guess I remember struggling with like calculating the cylinder head and sector number in assembly, because you wanted to load something off of a floppy and you wanted to sort of load from a linear offset into the disk, and you had to convert that into CHS address format, because that's what the floppy drive would take. So I remember struggling with that, but it wasn't really an x86-ism, more like a PC-ism, I guess. I don't program in CPP, he says, in the title bar. Is there any emojis? The emoji's shadow renders. If there are any emojis, the emoji's shadow renders in the same color as the emoji itself. Any plans to fix that? There are no plans in this operating system, and I certainly don't have any plan either. If you want that to be fixed, I would suggest that you change your name to I do program in C++, because then you can go and fix it, and I'm sure that you would find it a lot easier than you suspect. Let's see. Kenneth says, German, Danish, Dutch pastry is a different class than the Norwegian pastry. We have like bolle, skolebrød, and if we're lucky, wienerbrød. Yeah. Bolle. Yeah, I've had my share of bolle while living in Norway. It's okay, you know, but it's no Danish. Koa Secure says, "Hey Clink, can you walk through the boot process of Serenity, post to init, etc." So I've done a video. It was quite a while ago now, but Serenity boot process from boot to GUI. Yeah. So this one I would recommend because it's quite a long tour. This is a 45-minute video, so I would recommend this if you're interested. But some things have changed since then. Of course, this is from 2019, but in general, like the overall architecture is still very similar. The main thing to know about Serenity is that we don't implement a bootloader, but we instead piggyback on something like Grub or the multi-boot support of QEMU, for example, which we use for day-to-day development. So we don't do like the nitty-gritty bootloader stuff, but we instead take over after the bootloader has set up a video mode and the basics. Let's see. Liz3 says, "I think you have an OpenGL compat layer for ports, correct?" It's not so much of a compat layer as it is a OpenGL implementation. I guess yes, it is a compatibility layer, but it's also like an OpenGL implementation that we can use ourselves. So if we look at our graphics 3D file viewer, just look at this thing. It's it's really weird. Yeah, so the folks working on libgl are doing an awesome job just basically implementing OpenGL all in software and trying to they're trying to use SIMD instructions to make it go as fast as possible while still being all software. And by being a conforming GL implementation, this also allows us to run a lot of GL games, which is really cool. Like just last night, I saw some early demo of Quake 3 playing in Serenity, which was really cool. Jesse had that going, although it crashed after a few seconds, but I'm sure he could figure that out. But yes, we do have a GL layer, but it's not just for ports, it's also for our own use if we want to do 3D stuff. Krista Lind says, "Is Serenity still running on a single CPU core? It would be kind of cool to compare Chrome or Firefox against Serenity browser on a fair playing field." So I'm running on a single core right now. We do have multi-core support, but it is a bit unstable because of various locking, like deadlock and race condition issues that we need to track down and fix. And but anybody can work on that. It doesn't have to be me or anybody in particular. It's just something that we need to improve before it can become the default, basically. But we do have multi-core support. I can actually, I guess I can show you right now what it looks like. If I just have to enable multi-core scheduling right here, schedule on all processors. And then let me run SMP on. Okay, well, we're not off to a good start. Seems like we deadlocked on boot right there. Let's try again. And here we are. Okay, yeah. So as you see, first boot deadlocked, a second boot we came up. So now we are on multi-core. We have 2 CPUs. And you can usually do quite a bit of stuff just fine, but then you'll get a deadlock or something gets a little corrupted or something, and we just have to track down what's causing the issues. And I was doing a whole bunch of that right before switching to Acid 3, and maybe that's something I'll pick up and get back to after Acid 3. We'll see. We'll see. But it's something that exists. It just needs stability work. Let's see. Oh. Jacob Sinclair says, I was sitting here wondering why the audio wasn't working for about 10 minutes before I realized the audio through my headphones and not my speakers. Haha. Yeah. That, like, when I read the first part of that, I immediately checked, oh no, have I muted my microphone like 10 minutes ago and I'm just sitting here not audible? And because I have a chat scrolled up, then not even noticing. That would be a bit stupid. Omega Killer says, these days I'm binge watching some of your videos. One of those videos you mentioned that you'd like to buy a Threadripper system. Were you able to? What CPU are you running right now? I did not buy a Threadripper or anything like that yet. I am still using this i9 that was donated to me, and it's working just fine. I'm really happy with it. But of course, eventually I'm going to upgrade the machine at some point, but I don't feel the need to right now. We'll see though. Let's see. Colin says, is it possible to compare the competency of programmers, and can that function be passed into sort? I don't know if it's possible to compare the competency. I don't think there's like a single metric, at least, that would give you a number. And it's a complex thing, right? Because you can have somebody who knows a lot about programming, knows how to solve issues, but then is not very productive when they're in front of a machine and they have to get something done. And ultimately, somebody who's not productive is not going to be very useful on a team or in any situation where something needs to get done, right? So it's something that I find kind of fascinating, that sometimes people who have like less experience but more enthusiasm can sometimes be more valuable on a team than somebody who has a lot of experience but is just not interested in being productive. So I don't know how to think about competency these days. I don't know. When I was younger, it was easier because I just thought, like, the more you know, the better. But I've kind of shifted my perspective. Nowadays, I think more about, like, how much are people able to actually achieve in like a given time span or whatever. Kook says, did you ever write 512 byte long boot sector games in x86 assembly? I think I did once, actually. I want to say I made like a Pong game or something like that. Or maybe it was I don't know if it was a Tetris or some silly game. I definitely remember making for boot sector. But that was probably like 20 years ago. Let's see. I don't program in CPP says, I do program in C++, by the way. It's just that this is my alternate account, which somehow became my main account. So your name was a lie this whole time. My goodness. Well, thank you for telling the truth. Nicholas says, I continue to be very glad that I don't have to worry about manually entering disk geometry these days. Could never remember how many heads, cylinders, or whatever the disk I just put in has. Yeah, I mean, that stuff was just, it was just silly that that you had to do that in software. It's so much nicer to just put in like logical addresses. Echo Optic says, Andreas, do you have any tips on debugging the operating system? That is a very broad question, but my personal favorite is to just add a little print statement. When I want to know something, I just print it out. But different people have different techniques. Usually I would just say do whatever works and try to make progress that way. If you are the type of person who likes to have a debugger attached, then try to attach a debugger. But I don't know what you mean when you say debugging the operating system. Like, do you mean debugging a kernel, or do you mean debugging something inside of your operating system? Luke says, Jesse was playing on legit Quake 3 multiplayer servers in VoiceDev 1 earlier. That is really cool. All right, so Jesse has apparently gotten Quake 3 playable enough that he can participate in multiplayer games. Very, very rad. Morchan says, I was trying to use a site that uses Mutation Observer and was considering diving into the browser to try and add it. Any tips to understanding the inner workings other than videos or browsing the code? Those are the two main tips, obviously, but the main thing to know about our browser is that we try to write it as much as possible to look like the specifications. And we want names of functions and variables and as many things as possible to look like the spec, so that when you're reading the spec and looking at the code at the same time, then it should be obvious what's going on, so that if you can understand the spec, you can also understand the code, and vice versa. And that's really important to be aware of, because once you notice that connection of that symmetry, then you just bring the spec up and you can see what's missing, sort of. So that's my number one recommendation. So if you wanted to do something like mutation observers, then just go look at the spec for them, and you'll probably find where they fit into our code pretty naturally. Anti-Nuclear says, how is support for pure C? I don't know what pure C is. Pure C. Purec Egyptian skincare, best price in Nigeria. That's probably not what you were asking about. I don't know what that is, so probably support is not great. Niaz says, well, hello, friends. Well, hello, Niaz. Nice to see you. Okay, Colin Bell says, does your browser engine have a name? Yes, it's called libweb. Everything in Serenity has the most boring, obvious name possible. So our libraries are all lib something, and like lib the most obvious thing. So libweb is our HTML and CSS libraries, or HTML and CSS implementation, and libjs for JavaScript, and so on. And of course, our web browser has the very special name browser. And it's just something that just started early and we've just kind of stuck to. And the longer time goes, the more I like this. There's just something really adorable about these super obvious names. Felix L asks, libm ? Yeah, libm is POSIX libm. So POSIX says you have to have a libm, which supplies math functions. So that's our libm. It's much like libc is the standard C library. Libm is sort of the standard math library that POSIX says you should have. Anti-Nuclear said, I meant C without plus. Oh, you just mean like old style C? Yeah, sure, that's fully supported, but I wouldn't recommend using it. Jonas Lindbard says, is programming easier today with unlimited memory / CPU and power compared to 25 years ago? Oh, interesting. I think in many ways, it's harder today because there's just a lot more stuff being abstracted that you need to understand, but computers are way more, like, computers have a way more central role in our lives these days. So I think we've sort of adapted to that. But I think it depends on what you're doing, right? There's a lot of programming tasks and a lot of programming jobs you can do these days, which are clearly easier than the programming jobs that were available 25 years ago, clearly. But the more like sophisticated programming tasks, I would say, are more complex today, because we have like just having access to bigger and better machines means that we can use bigger and better techniques. Like, we don't have to limit ourselves to worrying about like individual bytes or sweating about like a kilobyte of memory here and there. Nowadays we tend to sweat more about megabytes, and you know, if you're Google, maybe you start sweating several gigabytes. I don't know. They're clearly not sweating about memory usage as much as we used to. So I do think that both makes it easier and harder, I guess. That's what makes this question so hard to answer and kind of interesting, because it's easier because we don't have to worry about these things. But because we don't have to worry about these things, we can use more sophisticated and complicated techniques, which are harder to understand and work with. Yeah, so it's a bit of both, I guess. But it's more fun today, I would say, because just the opportunities are so great. You can build such amazing things today with consumer hardware that were just not possible 25 years ago. So that's really cool. Miles says, tangentially related to web specs, there was an active research project where I used to study that was using Haskell to parse RFCs and generate working code in Rust, such as structs and state machines. Yeah, that's definitely something you can do. You can try to like generate some code from specs. I think in a perfect world, all specs are written in a way that you can generate code from them, right? And it wouldn't necessarily generate the most optimal implementation, you know, not necessarily the fastest or whatever, but if they could actually work, that would be really cool. And I'm a big fan of like ECMAScript, for example, which is the JavaScript spec, which is written in a really good way that gets close to being able to execute. Let's find some example of this if we scroll down a little bit. These kind of steps, you know, where they describe algorithms that you have to implement. It's basically code, right? I like that. And I would love to see more specs like this being like extremely meticulously describing what you should be doing. That is cool. Colin says, I feel you on the simple names. I named my Vim clone Text. That's a good name for a text editor. I named my text editor, but text is short and sweet. I like it. Dangerous Pictures says, in my opinion, more performance makes stuff more bloated, giving more room for error. Yeah, that's definitely a concern, right? Like, more performance means that you can add more abstraction layers, and you can afford to do stuff that would have been too slow on a slow machine, but now it's faster, so the user might not notice. And if you keep doing stuff like that, then eventually, like the first thing that happens is that it's so easy to punish people who don't have as nice hardware as you do. That was a constant problem when I worked at Apple, because the people working on software at Apple all had like the latest MacBook and the latest iMac and the latest iPhone and whatever. And it's very hard to understand what the software will feel like on a 2 years old device if you're never using one. And I guess I feel like that's one of the worst things about using the CPU, the increase in CPU performance as an excuse to like use more abstractions and stuff like that. Let's see. Piers says, it looks like the Adopt a Yak fund has really taken off. Is there enough in the purse to cast the fund from an adoption to a full purchase? That is a very interesting question, because I was actually on yags.com the other day, just looking at what it might cost to buy a yak. Now, I'm not saying I'm gonna buy one, but I was a little curious about how much is a yak really. And look here, for example, this is Speckles. He's $1,300. He's sideways, but kind of cute. And you can even get a discount when you purchase multiple yaks. So, but to answer your question, I think the Adopt a Yak fund, while it has been growing, I still don't have enough to purchase myself a Clint or Tiffany or T-Bone Walker. So gonna have to wait a little bit with that. Tom Coots says, what is the most recent thing that has been merged that makes you go, wow, I didn't know we needed this, but I'm glad it was done? Oh, that's such an interesting question. What's the last thing like that happened? There's always so many little things. I don't know. Oops. Well, that was not intentional. Something... I can't think of what that would be right now. Something, like a really small thing that happened a while ago, like a few weeks ago now, was that Thank You Very Cool did a little change to the way that we draw window borders on these windows that don't have a title bar, like the command palette here. So I'll show you. Let me just get the magnifier. And let me just zoom in like crazy. Right here, you see that in the top left corner of this command palette window, instead of having a white border as the top and left edge, it now also has like an additional line of light gray. And that line wasn't there before. It just ended in a white border. But that extra line of gray just makes it look so much nicer. And when he added that, I was so happy. And I couldn't even see before that there was something wrong with the old thing. But man, it looks so good with that. So that's an example of a little thing that I didn't even notice before. And when I saw it, I just couldn't believe that we had it that way before. Let's see. Matthew Olson says, have you seen the presentation that the Cased research group gave at TC39? It was doing exactly that. Spec execution on ECMAScript. Had a debugger and everything. That is super cool. I have not seen that. I got to check that out. Cozy Curse. Oh, Cozy Curse. I thought your name was Cosecure. Cozy Curse said, when I was in Finland and still eating meat, they offered me deer meat. Is deer meat a delicacy in Sweden as well? I have no idea. I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian. So I don't know what the meat delicacies are. Morchan says, will there ever be a trying to do a git push in SerenityOS video? Maybe. Soul S says, bro, Apple couldn't care less about older devices. They want you to buy newer devices. I can tell you for a fact that Apple does care about older devices. When I was last working there, we had these long periods of time when they asked us to use specifically old devices. So I was using a 3-year-old device and targeting that with my primary development work was like working on that device and trying to improve performance on an older iPhone. And there were many people in the group that were doing that, and it's something that they are very concerned about and something that they do spend a lot of money on, but there's only so much they can do, right? Because they keep adding features and they keep adding functionality to iOS. So it is going to bloat up and the older devices will suffer, but they do actively spend time and money on improving the software for the older versions of hardware by having engineers use older hardware daily. Not saying it's perfect, but they are making an effort. Colin says, if Apple open sourced their operating system, I would actually use a Mac. Yeah, see, that's kind of interesting, because something I really like about working at Apple is that you can use Mac OS and then you have the source code for it. So it's like an open source operating system while you're working there. But the moment you stop working there, you are no longer using an open source operating system, if that makes sense. So when I left, I really didn't like having to switch out of that. And that was part of what motivated me to make my own operating system, was that I wanted to have that good feeling of having all the code for everything I'm using and being able to just fix anything anywhere in the stack without having to like learn a new language or learn a new coding style or you know, learn a new whatever. Like everything is here, everything can be fixed, everything is fitting together. And I think at first it seemed like it was a very lofty goal, but the further we get with the Serenity project, the more I see that, yeah, this is clearly a thing that we can do, right? We can definitely build an operating system that is fully open source, and it's like self-contained and complete. And I think it's going pretty well. A lot of stuff missing, of course, but we'll add that too. Yeppy Dev says, hello Andreas, hope everything is good. I have a question. Have you used any game engines like Unity 3D or Unreal Engine before? No, I have not. I have watched people on Twitch making games with Unity and with Unreal Engine, but I have never tried doing it myself. Unlucky AF says, don't you get bored programming and you just want to do nothing, play video games, or in general waste time? No, absolutely not. I don't want to do nothing. I do want to play video games sometimes, but I don't get bored programming, and I really don't want to do nothing or waste my time. I'm only going to be alive for so many more years, right? And there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, a lot of code that I want to write. And if I just waste my time instead of work on the things that I want to build, then I will eventually grow old and not be able to finish everything I wanted to do. So I feel like I have to make use of the time that I have, I guess. Not that I hope to, I mean, I hope I don't die anytime soon, of course, but I feel like we're mortal creatures, you know, and we only get so much time. And I want to try to make the most of the time that I have. I didn't always feel that way, but lately I do, and I want to see how much I can really do, or like how far I can really take this in my lifetime. So that gives me a lot of energy to think of it that way. Kook says, why waste time when you can program and be productive? I mean, yeah, basically. It is a very strange proposition. Like, why would you want to waste time when you can program instead and be productive? I think it's important, though, to make a distinction between wasting time and relaxing, right? It is very important to relax and enjoy yourself and do a little bit of other stuff, like how we mentioned video games. So I regularly take time to sit down and play games just because I really enjoy it, and I want to have some variety, I guess. I like to train, go to the gym, and I enjoy other activities as well, but programming is the main primary thing that I'm interested in, of course. I do think that it is very important to have leisure, but leisure, in my view, should exist to re-energize you, not as a sort of primary pursuit of its own. You want to work on something that fulfills you, and then you want to have leisurely activities to re-energize yourself when the work has made you tired. That's my perspective. Of course, everybody has their own perspective on these things, and I think it's also something that changes as we get older. When I was in my mid-20s, I thought that if you're not working 16 hours a day, then you're wasting time. And I thought, like, the coolest possible thing to do with my life was to just work. And I don't know why I thought that way. It was part of it, I guess, was like almost like peer pressure or something, because I saw people around me acting that way, so I wanted to fit in and do the same thing. But as I got older, I just figured that I'm a lot more productive, and I think my work is better when I have regular relaxation or regular recreation in my life. Pierce says hustle culture. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. And hustle culture is very counterproductive, I think, because if you're always hustling and you're never relaxing, then your work just degrades. Like, it continuously degrades until it becomes really, really poor. And you need to take a break and recharge and reset yourself. And if you don't do that, then you just your output is just going to be really crap. I know from personal experience, like from pushing myself to the point where I was just making crap, feeling bad, and still somehow priding myself on being at work a lot, but making bad work, I guess. Kind of silly. It's a very silly thing, and it's silly how people can egg each other on to act like that. Dangerous Pictures says, watching an older video of you and seeing you laugh and have fun on a live stream now makes me so happy. Keep up the good work. Yeah. It is. It's really bizarre to me when I look at my older videos and I see that, like, they're made in 2019, which was a long time ago now. I've been doing this for a while, and I think I've changed quite a bit. Clearly, I'm more comfortable in front of the camera and comfortable enough to be live here with you people, and definitely not something I thought I would ever do, and now I can do it. So very impressed with human adaptability here. And yes, I'm happy that it makes you happy. It makes me happy too. I'm having a great time here every Friday. Let's see. Vanta was saying, have you ever thought about making SerenityOS documentation for all the libraries used to make the system? Might be a good resource. Yes, I have thought about that many times. And I think many people think about that every now and then. But it's something that we're going to have to do it organically. And somebody will start, and then other people will help, and it will happen when it happens. In the past, I was more worried about API stability, and like if we start to write documentation now, everything is just going to change anyway soon. But things are actually starting to feel a bit stable in terms of APIs. So that's really good. Maybe it is time to start looking at some docs. I don't know. We'll see. I actually had I had an interesting conversation with somebody earlier this week about maybe writing a book, but that seemed a bit too early to me. A book about SerenityOS. Yanis with the super chat saying, going from a workaholic to a symbol for programming because it's fun. That, if that's what I've done, then man, that is awesome. I've definitely been a workaholic, and if I can somehow become a symbol of programming because it's fun, then that's something that I would be very happy to be, very proud to be. Thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that somebody would see me that way, like programming because it's fun. That is really what I'm about. Like programming because it's fun, relaxing when you need to recharge yourself, focusing on the good stuff, setting boundaries. Yeah, like the good life. Unlucky AF says, make a small game in TempleOS as a challenge. That doesn't really sound like a fun challenge. But it would be a challenge, but it's lacking in the fun. More Chan says, do you dabble in other projects? Rarely. I did briefly poke at the Natalie Ruby compiler last year for Christmas. And I made a video out of that, which was a lot of fun. And actually, I don't know, if somebody hasn't seen that, I had a lot of fun making that video. So I am going to... wait, where did that thing go? Yeah, that was a lot of fun, but I haven't done anything on other projects since then. Although I guess I do sometimes... I mean, I have the source code for a lot of stuff, and sometimes I tweak things that I use if I run into some trouble or something. But it's been a while since I really dabbled and tried to participate somehow in another project. Serenity is the scope of Serenity is just so huge that if you fall in love with SerenityOS, it will happily consume you in a good way, because once you get comfortable in Serenity, you notice that there's everything. You can work on any kind of software in Serenity, any kind of systems or application software. If you want to do graphics or networking or text layout or whatever you want to do, databases, terminal emulation, kernel scheduling. We got all kinds of stuff. And when you get really comfortable in that environment, it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to find a reason to go anywhere else, because there's so much that I want to do here. And I like that. And I like it when I can see on other people that they come to SerenityOS and they fall in love, and it's like a kid in a candy store, sort of, where you see people just get so excited about all the different things that you can do, and the complete lack of friction between components, right? I think that's like everybody who joins the project has that experience at some point where they have some issue and then they try to fix it, but then they realize that actually my issue isn't in the component where I thought it was, it's in this other component that the original component I suspected sort of interacts with this other component where the problem is. And the just complete lack of friction when moving your investigation from one component to the other and saying like, oh, I'm just going to fix it in that component then. It's amazing, right? Like, it's an awesome thing to notice that you can just seamlessly do that, and there's nothing quite like it in the open source world, at least not that I'm aware of at this scale. And I just love seeing people have that experience. It's really, it's just great, just real great. Piers says, do you have any questions for the audience instead of us asking you questions? Ooh. I think I probably have so many questions because I very often wonder things about the audience. And then I just put them somewhere in my brain, and now that I need to recall immediately, they don't just pop up. But I guess one thing that I would love to know is what do you think SerenityOS is, right? What does it seem like to you? What do you think of it as? Do you think of it as art, or is it like software that you would want to use yourself, or that you think is something that could replace and fill all of your software needs? Or do you think of it more as an art project that just tries to be something beautiful, and you think that it's going in a good direction there? Or do you see it in some other way? Like, what do you see when you look at SerenityOS, I guess? Because I have like all of these very personal ideas about it, but I always want to know what other people think that it is, or what kind of direction they see it going, or what kind of future they see it having. Because I don't know that. And that would be really fascinating. Let's see, Vanta says, I'm interested in starting/contributing to SerenityOS documentation. Well, you can definitely do that. Step 1, write a piece of documentation. Stian says, I totally agree with that last super chat. Well, thank you. Let's see. Okay, Donnie says, it's an operating system I wish to switch to for daily driving. Right, then we are pretty much aligned. That's what I want to do as well. I definitely want to get to having an operating system that I can use and not have to use anything else. It's going to take time, but we'll get there. Anti-Nuclear says, a browser that does not suck. Interesting. Well, our browser is going to suck for a while, but we can make it good. It'll just take time. Dangerous Pictures said, write a list of all your questions for the community and make a questions to the community stream. Ooh, I like that. That's a great idea. Oh, Petroci Sultan. Sultan says, for now, it's like a playground where everyone can do what they want and are interested in. No expectations, coding for the fun of it. Yeah, that's true. It is like a playground. Like like a playground for programmers, I guess. Jörg says, best fan project for 2022 to program in C++. Fan project. Colin says, I see SerenityOS as a personal tool for you. I personally want to develop my own operating system that fulfills all my needs. I see Serenity as a template for that purpose. Fascinating. Okay. That's a very cool perspective. So like you see Serenity and you see sort of what it has done for me, and you want to make something for yourself for your own needs. That's awesome. I love that. And I hope that you can derive some sort of helpful information towards your goal from Serenity. I think we definitely figured out a bunch of things that are probably useful to somebody who wants to do the same thing. Let's see. Oh, John was asking, what advice do you have when you come across an idea that you can't seem to get your head around? I started hacking a project that uses a peg parser, and I'm struggling to build it beyond the simple ideas. When I come across an idea that I can't seem to get my head around, I usually like push myself 5% more or something like that, like work on it a little bit more, try to get my head around it, and then just let it go for a while. Like go do something else and let it sort of stew in my subconscious, and then come back to it after a week or something. I've done that thousands of times in SerenityOS, where I had something that I wanted to do, couldn't quite get it right, so I just abandoned it, did something else, and then came back a week or two later, and now it was so much easier. And that seems to work every freaking time. Something happens in the brain when you absorb a bunch of info and take a break from it, and then come back and try to make use of the info. It's I don't know, that works for me every time, so that's definitely what I would recommend. Just take a little break from it. Panta82 says, response to what Serenity is. It's a fascinating educational project. I'm hoping it might obtain a real utility at some point as an operating system. An educational project. Yeah, I've heard that from some people, that they think of it as like it's an educational tool or an educational system, and I think in many ways it is. I mean, it's certainly been for me. I've learned so much from working on this, and it's really sweet that other people get to learn stuff too. And I think early on, I was often telling people, because whenever you're doing something a little unusual, you always get people asking, well, what's the point of this? Why are you doing this? Why not just use Linux? Or why not just do a ready-made thing? And in the early days, one of the answers I was often giving to people was that, well, I just want to learn how to do this. I just want to learn how to build a complete operating system. It's just for my own education and fun. And I guess I'm now realizing that I don't say that as much anymore. Like, I don't say that I'm doing it to learn, but it's still true. I guess it just became about more than just learning. In the beginning, there was so much learning because everything was new. Now we have kind of an established framework for what we're doing. So there's maybe, at least in my case, like there's a bit less learning and a bit more just like engineering work of actually building it out and filling in the missing abstractions and stuff. But it is really good to hear that you see it as educational. And I guess even if I don't feel like I'm learning with everything I'm doing, if I can help somebody else learn something, then education was still achieved. So that is good. Coasicurse says, I think Serenity is a project that Klingarius Rex started for personal reasons, and it has since blossomed into many things for many people. For me, it's a way to learn how operating systems work. Yeah, that's I guess that's really accurate. Yeah, it did start like that. And now everybody gets to have their own idea of what it is. And for you, it's a way to learn how operating systems work. Yeah, I think you share that with many people. Like, there's so many people who can learn how operating systems work by looking at how this thing works. And I like to imagine that we're in a uniquely awesome position because you have the whole code base all in one place. So there's no like, well, to understand how this component works, you need to go over here to this other repository and look at this component. And it depends on this other component from over here and so on, like everything one place. I feel like that's a good advantage. Calculated Risk Taker says, I see SerenityOS as the ultimate off-grid operating system. I would like to build things on top of it to accommodate solar energy, plant growing, and security. Ooh, I love that. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's definitely in a good place, or has a good mindset for off-grid use because of that self-sufficiency, right? Like, of having everything in one place means that there shouldn't be any external surprises or external dependencies. Like, we know what we're building because we're building the whole thing. So we're definitely not going to put anything into it that would have any expectation of being like always online or something like that. Let's see. Reymar says, I see it more as an art thing right now. I do hope one day it can be on the same level of usefulness as any other operating system so I can daily drive it. Yeah, I hope that too. And just personally, I see it, I mean, I see art in many ways, right? But I guess I see it as both art and software. But it's funny because I just agree with everything everybody's saying. But it's so good to see all these random perspectives from all of you. And I feel like I can relate to every one of them. That's kind of cool. Piers says, I don't want to believe that Serenity will have a plan, but secretly I wish I knew what everyone's plans were. But I do see Serenity one day being a viable alternative to Linux for the desktop. Yeah, maybe one day it would be. But I think there's a great charm to not having a public plan. There's something so nice about it because it means that if you want to know what's going on, you have to pay attention. If you don't pay attention, you're not going to know what's going on. But that's also okay. Like, you can go disappear for a month and then come back and see what's going on, catch up. Some people do that. It's kind of fun. But I was never a fan of publishing a plan because it takes all of the, I don't know, it takes all the surprise out. Tim Schumacher says, can normal users not post links? Just try to link an issue, but the message never shows up. So YouTube is really paranoid about URLs. If you post a URL in a comment or a live chat message, very often they just throw it away. It has nothing to do with what type of user you are. As far as I know, it's just YouTube is just filtering very aggressively. And if I could, I would just disable all of those filters, but they don't have a way to disable them. Tib says, when is it necessary to comment code, and what is the purpose of commit messages? Ooh, big questions. I think it's necessary to comment code when anything non-obvious is happening that that you can't tell immediately from reading the code. So if there's any kind of non-obvious invariant in play, or if there's some non-obvious secondary effect of something that the code is doing, that sort of thing, it's important to put a comment about it. Really, I tend to to write comments when there's anything happening that you might not immediately notice from reading the code. If the code says exactly everything that's happening and there's no external thing happening in parallel that you need to be aware of, then very often I think you can avoid comments. But yeah, for non-obvious things. And for commit messages, the purpose of a commit message is to document the individual change that you're making. So you're making like the smallest change possible to achieve some improvement. So you create a diff that has like the smallest number of changes to fix the bug you're trying to fix or add the feature you're trying to add. And then the commit message describes exactly what this little diff is doing. And the reason that you want to have that is so that for when anybody else looks at that diff, or when you in the future looks at that diff, you can understand much more easily what was the purpose of this change, right? What was this person thinking when they added this code or removed or changed this code? It's so much easier to read 2-3 lines of what somebody wrote to describe a change than it is to look at it as code and try to sort of divine retrospectively what the purpose was. So yeah, commit messages are really like annotations for the benefit of others and for our future selves. And when you work on a project that goes on for a very long time, then you will learn how valuable good commit messages are, because when you go back and look at something that you did like 4 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you're not going to remember why you did everything that you did. But if you wrote a little note, your past self is like telling you why he did what he did, and you will be so grateful for that note. Or for anybody's note, like just for having those, that will be so useful. Michael says, I want SerenityOS as a daily driver because Windows and Linux are collapsing under their own weight and other problems. Well, they're certainly increasing in weight, let's say. It's astonishing how much Windows and Linux and Mac OS too, like how much they're just growing in sheer size. It is strange. Unlucky AF says SerenityOS is a combination of a name which comes from insanity and an acronym that comes from something. All right. Not sure I understand, but sure. Kook says, I would love to see Serenity someday become a really cool and viable alternative to Linux for programmers, creators, and general consumers. Oh, that's a very broad spectrum. So from my perspective, I never had any intent of trying to make something for general consumers, but that doesn't mean that I'm against making the system usable by anybody. It just means that like my own personal target audience for the things that I do is like fellow programmers and creators, power users, basically. But, you know, there are a lot of developers who have a passion for creating things that are generally useful. And if they have some good improvements that would make the system better for everybody without making it worse for power users, that's maybe interesting. We'll see. Ecoptic says, for debugging, I was thinking about the kernel. For example, when you get a crash, if you make some mistake, for example, setting the GDT wrong and you get a crash. It happened to me when I mistyped a flag. I would recommend attaching like GDB to your kernel, or you can also use your emulator's built-in debugger. So QEMU and Box, they both have built-in debuggers, I think. But yeah, with that early stuff, what I was doing back in the early days when I struggled with stuff like that was that I would usually I would either run in my own emulator or in the Box emulator. And if I was using Box, I would just add a little print statement to print out the state of the emulated CPU every now and then when something interesting was happening, so that I could see sort of a trace of what was happening. That's how I found many weird little bugs early on. Mitchell Bumgarner says, I'm not a C++ programmer. I barely know Python, but I found a bug in the game 2048. Can you try to recreate the bug? All right. Why not? Let's go find out. Let's see. Issue. Oh. Let's go and look at the bug. So, issues. Weird behavior with 2048. Okay, so I'm supposed to do this and that, and then something weird will happen. Let's try it out. All right, we'll open 2048, click on game settings, set the target tile to 11, sure. Click OK. New settings have been saved, sure. And go back to settings. And it's now 10 again. Ooh. What's that about? I don't know what that's about, but I'm sure that somebody can figure that out. So usually what happens whenever we encounter a bug on these streams, then somebody goes and finds a way to figure it out. Even before I'm back from streaming, sometimes I come back to Discord and there's like somebody who already found the bugs that I was demonstrating. So we'll see. Maybe somebody will figure this out. It's probably something silly. I would imagine that maybe there's like some change notification hook that it's not handled correctly or something like that. But we'll see what we can come up with. Wait. This name right here in Cyrillic, is that Maria? Farid. Wait, is that Farid? Dang it. How can I? Oh, it's Farid. Okay, yeah. I thought it was Maria, but it's definitely not that. I don't know why. I guess because of this. Ari. I recognize this part, and I've seen Maria, but... Anyway, Farid. Farid says, in what areas would you like to improve your knowledge? Good question. In what areas would I like to improve my knowledge? I think one area that I would love to improve is security. I had a lot of fun in the past just writing exploits for Serenity and trying to exploit various security bugs that I'd found. That was a lot of fun, but I do feel a bit like... I did feel whenever I was doing that, I was always learning so much stuff. I had to learn so many things to be able to find the bugs and know what to do with them. And I feel like there's so much more to learn in that area, and it's so much fun. The only problem I've had with security is that when I get really into that, I sort of forget everything else, and I'm just looking for security bugs, which is fun. But I guess I go in phases where I want to be productive and constructive and make more of the software, but I also want to like improve our security, find issues, practice exploit writing. Anyway, yeah, that's an area I would love to improve in like both defensive security and offensive security for sure. And I would also like to learn some more data structures. I always love that feeling of learning a new data structure and then suddenly imagining all these different places where you can make use of it to improve something. That's a great feeling, and you can only really get that feeling if you take the time to learn new data structures. And I would also like to get a bit better at cooking, but it's a bit unrelated. Anyway, Niaz says, I think that SerenityOS will replace desktop Linux, and I want to be there when that happens. Well, you are in the right place, because if it happens, it will happen here. Let's see. Mitchell says, I don't know how to change code and rebuild Serenity yet, or I would try it myself. Sorry, still learning. Don't worry about it, dude. You'll figure it out. If you're having trouble building Serenity, just ask in the Build Problems channel on Discord, and people can definitely help you there just to get it going. It is very, very easy to tweak the code and rebuild. So just ask. Somebody will help you get it going quickly. Oh, we got some people joining the Golden Yak herd. Welcome, Anderson. I believe Anderson was actually the person who suggested starting the YouTube membership. So thank you for that. And Colin as well. Thank you very much for the support. It's so funny to see these goofy gold yaks. They are just sweet. Let me see here. Koa Sakurs says, hey Andreas, you can pronounce my name as Koa for short, just to save you the trouble. Well, all right, Koa, I will. Koa, that's a very Koa. It's a very pleasant thing to say. Donnie says, software is art. Art is an explosion. Yeah, I suppose it is. Ecoptic says, oh, so Andreas has a secret plan? We got him now. You don't have me. You don't. I don't have a plan. Anyway. Sasan says, congrats on the Acid 3 achievements. Thank you, man. Acid 3 has been going real well, and we're so close. We just have to bring it home, like the last couple of issues to just figure out what's going on and bring it home. But it's gonna be sweet, and it's gonna happen. Let's see. Michael says, I exaggerate a bit, but I'd love a more streamlined system. Was that in extension to... Oh, right, extension to Windows and Linux are collapsing under their own weight and other problems. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think they are... they have become huge, right? There's no denying that. And there's definitely a place for a much smaller, more streamlined system. And I do think that if you want to build something truly slim and streamlined, this is the way to do it, right? Not, you can't really build something truly streamlined if you build it as 1,000 separate packages. We build everything here. We can streamline it as much as possible. And I can't imagine a better way than that. So I'm optimistic too. Anderson says, awesome, just joined the live stream and saw the membership option. Thanks for everything and keep up the awesome work. Love seeing the development videos from all of the Serenity team. Thanks, man. I also frickin' love the recent videos that I was publishing on the channel with the community showcase. How cool are those? I just gotta link them. This guy right here, and let me link the previous one as well. I'm just gonna link these in the chat. If anybody hasn't seen them, please check them out because they are so neat. And I definitely want to make more of these. It's so good to bring everybody on. Like, everybody who wants to be in these videos is welcome, as long as you're working on something for SerenityOS. And being able to share the stage with more people and show that, like, oh, look, it's not just me and you know, Linus and Yella and the people who have been in the monthly update videos, but it's all these other people working on awesome stuff. And I'm really happy that we can show that. Colin says, I also just got membership. Viva l'économie des hackers. I don't know if I said that right, but yes, indeed. Viva the hacker economy. And Koa says, Maria in Cyrillic would be Maria. I mean, how else would I pronounce that? But yeah, that's this name I've seen, because I had a friend who wrote her name like this everywhere, and I hadn't seen it for a while because I hadn't seen her for a while. Okay, looky here. Ali is debugging. Very nice. Alex K says, you can find courage in the system and, of course, serenity. What about wisdom? Well, I like to think that wisdom is what we're currently accumulating. Maybe. Ooh. I know. What should we call our little documentation project that we talked about earlier? What is documentation if not wisdom, right? That's just such an obvious fit. Anyway, it is after 6 o'clock, so I gotta go, and this is gonna be the end of the stream. So thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate all the company, the awesome questions and the answers today. I think I am gonna come up with a list of questions for the community, so I'll have that. But I really appreciate all the lovely communication we've had here today. Thank you so much for the super chats and everything else. And I hope I said everybody's name right. And if you end up working on SerenityOS this weekend, then please come and hang out with us on Discord so that we can talk about what you're doing and see some screenshots and stuff, because that's awesome. Anyways, I will see you all next time. So have a great weekend. Ciao.